Hi, fifth graders. I'm Tran, and this is lesson 11. In today's lesson, we're going to be going over division with decimal quotients, word problems, dividing decimals, and simplifying fractions. So on the first page, number 1, we have 1 divided by 2. So we're going to set it up by putting the first number inside a little house and the second number outside of the house, which is how we always do division. So we know that 1 can go into 2, so we're going to put a 0 as a placeholder right away and a decimal since we know that 2 is greater than 1. We also need to put a decimal here, and we're just going to put a 0 here as another placeholder. Now we're going to treat this as a 10, and we know that 10 divided by 2 is 5, so we're going to write 5 here, and we're going to check our work by saying if 10 minus 10, and we have no more remainder. So for number 1, our answer is 0.5. For number 7, we have 790 divided by 8. So we always do division from left to right. So 7 divided by 8 isn't possible. So we're just going to put a 0 as a placeholder. And now we look at 79 divided by 8. And we can divide that by 9, which gives us a um, sum of 72 because 8 times 7 or 8 times 9 equals 72. So we're going to write the 9 up here. And now we're going to subtract these two numbers. So now we get 7. And now we need to drag out the 0 because we can't do 7 divided by 8. So now we can treat this as 70 divided by 8. And we can do 70 divided by 8 up to 8 times because 8 times 8 is 64. So we're going to put a 64 here. And we're going to put an 8 since we're multiplying 8 by 8. Now we subtract these two numbers. So 70 minus 4 is 64. So, or 70 minus 64 is 6. And once again, we add another 0, but now we have to put a decimal because we're going out of this house. So we're going to put a 0 as a placeholder, and we can do 60 divided by 8, 7 times, because 7 times 8 equals 56. So we're going to write 56 here, and subtract that again, and 60 minus 56 is 4. And now we need to put another 0 as a placeholder, since we're out of the range. So 40 divided by 8 is 5, and 5 times 8 equals 40. So now we have a remainder of 0, so that means that we are done. So for number 7, our answer is 98.75. For our word problem, we have a lollipop factory used 407 kilograms of sugar to make 5 batches of lollipops. How much sugar did the factory put in each batch? So we have the numbers 407 and 5, and the word problem says each, so that's how I know that we're dividing. So we're going to set it up just like this, 407 divided by 5. So first we look at 4 divided by 5, that's not possible, so we're going to put a 0 as a placeholder. Now we look at 40 divided by 5, that equals 8, and 8 times 5 equals 40, so we're going to subtract it by 40, which is a remainder of 0. So now we can drag down this 7, and now we can do 7 divided by 5. We can do that one time, and 7 or 5 times 1 is just 5. So we're going to subtract it by 5. Sorry if this is a little messy, there's not much space. So now 7 minus 5 equals 2. Now we need to put a placeholder as a 0, or 0 as a placeholder, because 2 divided by 5 isn't possible. And we also need to put a decimal place, because we're out of this range now. So 20 divided by 5 is 4, and we're just going to check that. 5 times 4 equals 20. So now we can do 20 minus 20, which gives us a remainder of 0. We know that, oops, a remainder of 0 And since our remainder is 0, that means we're done with this problem. So I'm going to just write the answer here. It is 81.4. But since we're doing a word problem, we need to label our unit. And it's asking for how much sugar. And the problem is in kilograms. So we're going to say 81.4 kilograms. On this page, we're going to be dividing decimals. And number one, we have 1.5 divided by 0 0.5. So what I'm going to do is move the decimal to the right once on each number. So now that's going to give us 15 divided by 0 divided by 5, which is pretty easy to do compared to this. So now we can do 15 divided by 5, which gives us 3. We're going to double check this by doing 15 times or 3 times 5, and this does give us 15. So that's how we know for number 1 that our answer is 3. Alright, for the last page, we're going to be simplifying fractions in their lowest form. So for number 2, we have 5 divided by over 15. So what we do is we try and find the greatest common factor in each number. So we look at this and we see that 5 is the greatest common factor. So we're going to divide each number by 5. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. So we see if we can simplify this any further. And we can't simplify 1/3 anymore. So 1/3 is our final answer for number 2. For number 6, we have 23 over 46. So we look for the greatest common factor again, which is 23. So we're going to divide each number by 23. 23 divided by 23 is 1, and 46 divided by 23 is 2. So this gives us a final answer of 1/2. That's all for this lesson, and I hope you find this helpful.